In this guide, I'm going to show you how the skill system works in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Stay to the end of the video for some quickfire tips and tricks that will help you level each skill a bit more efficiently, but without breaking your immersion in the game. In total, there are 21 skills in Oblivion, as you can see listed on the screen right now. And one of the things that's always given the game that true build your own class RPG feel is that every character is able to gain proficiency in every single skill. You're never restricted from using any skill regardless of the choices your character makes, and you're totally free to level them all to max. You can instantly switch from being an archer to wielding a sword and shield to summoning creatures from Oblivion to fight alongside you. However, you will be required early in the game to prioritise certain skills for your character. The 7 skills that you select during the tutorial, either through picking one of the pre-made classes or by creating your own custom class, will be considered your major skills, and all of the remaining skills will be considered minor skills for that particular character. And this is really important for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the 7 major skills that you select will start at skill level 25 instead of skill level 5. And they're going to improve faster than minor skills. This means that you're going to start at apprentice level for each of your major skills, and we'll cover more on what apprentice level actually means later in the video. But it's important to know that starting at skill level 25 might mean you can hit harder with weapons or spells, you can run faster or even jump higher depending on the major skills you've selected, so it's worth thinking carefully about the choices that you make. The second important thing to know about major skills is that they're essential to the character leveling system in Oblivion. For every 10 major skill points you gain, your character is going to level up. This is not the case for minor skills, so once again think very carefully about the major skills that you select. However, minor skills do have an impact on the attribute bonuses you get when you level. Now this is a bit of a weird quirk of the Oblivion leveling system, and it's not particularly intuitive. I'll explain it in basic terms for the purpose of this beginner's video, and if you really don't care about being that efficient, then just skip to the next section of the video. It's not going to be overly impactful in your first run as a beginner. So basically, in Oblivion, every skill is governed by an attribute. As you can see, I've put a list on screen that shows which skills are governed by which attributes rather than listing them all. You can pause to review. When your character levels, after gaining 10 skill points in any combination of your major skills, you'll be given the opportunity to permanently increase the value of free attributes. And this is where it gets a little more complicated, as the composition of the skill points you earned during the previous level will dictate the size of the bonus you gain to each of those free attributes. Let's use strength as an example. If you spent the whole level just slashing with a sword and did literally nothing else, then all 10 points would be in blade. Now blade is governed by the strength attribute, and therefore you would get the maximum bonus of 5 points to strength. However, because you didn't level any other skill, you would get the minimum bonus of 2 points to all other attributes. This is where minor skills come in, as while minor skills don't count towards your character's level, they do count towards the attribute multiplier when you level. Therefore, you can basically ensure that you're always offered plus 5 points to each attribute when you level by ensuring that you've leveled the relevant minor skills before leveling the 10 major skills that will cause your character to level. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I'll give an example. If I had minor skills in Marksman, Heavy Armour and Alchemy, I could level each of them 10 times before gaining the required 10 points in any combination of my major skills that would cause me to level. And therefore, I'd be offered plus 5 to agility, endurance, and intelligence when I leveled. It's worth noting that once you hit 10 major skills and are prompted to rest your character in order to level up, anything else after that doesn't count. So if you want to max out your attributes each level, then stop leveling your major skills before you hit 10 and focus on the relevant minor skills. You can also combine minor and major skills that are governed by the same attribute to hit the necessary 10 skill points that are going to give you the maximum multiplier for that attribute when you level. Anyway, that's as close to efficient leveling as we're going to get in this video. There's a lot more to it, and there are plenty of people who have theory crafted the hell out of it online, so if you're interested, it's worth doing a little extra research. Something else to mention about leveling is that the game actually scales to your level. So as you level, you're going to face more powerful enemies. So you're potentially going to have a bit of a shock if you go and level a bunch of non-combat skills like Alchemy and, let's say, Acrobatics, and then go straight back into a fight with a horde of angry Daedra who have now been scaled up due to your level. Anyway, moving on to skill ranks. Basically, as you level your skills, you're going to move through the 5 ranks that you can achieve for each skill: Novice, Apprentice, Journeyman, Expert, and Master. Novice is for skill range 0 to 24, Apprentice for 25 to 49, Journeyman for 50 to 74, Expert for 75 to 99, and Master for those who have achieved a skill of 100. Your skill rank's important as it dictates a number of things. Firstly, you gain a skill perk for each new skill rank that you achieve. Again, there are too many to list here, but for example, when you reach the Master level in blunt weapons, you actually gain the ability to perform a power attack with a chance to paralyze the enemy. So they're actually non-trivial and definitely well worth going after. Now, Google is your friend if you want to take a look at the entire list of skill perks. There's something like 70 of them, I think. And it's also worth noting that magic skills are a bit of an exception here. As for magic skills, you don't actually get perks in the same way. Your skills just become more powerful as you progress through the skill levels. And that pretty much covers the basics of the leveling system itself. But how do you actually level your skills? Well, in basic terms, to level any particular skill, you simply need to repeatedly use that skill. For example, if you want to level up Marksman, you need to use your bow. For Blade, you need to slash people with a sword. For Blunt, you're going to have to bonk them with an axe or hammer. And for Sneak, you're going to have to sneak about. Anyway, I think you probably get the idea. There are also a number of other ways to improve your skills aside from just using them. There are a number of skill books scattered across the world. You can gain skill points as a reward for certain quests. And occasionally, you can gain skill increases through special interactions in the game. Most significantly of all, you can pay trainers to increase your skill to a maximum of 5 skill points per character level. It's worth noting, by the way, that these 5 points are shared across all trainers. You can't just run around getting 5 points in every single skill for every single level. Another important thing to know is that there are different tiers of trainers. You have basic trainers who can train you up to a skill level of 40, advanced trainers who can skill you up to 70, and master trainers who can skill you up to level 100. To use master trainers, you're going to first need to reach level 70 in the relevant skill, and then you're going to have to go and speak to your advanced trainer. They're then going to direct you to a master trainer, who you're going to have to complete a quest for as a prerequisite to learning from them. Oh, and remember that training does get more expensive as your level goes up, so actually maybe check out my gold making video if you're planning to use trainers frequently. As there are 5 trainers per skill and there's 21 skills, I'm not going to list them all here as I don't want this video to be an hour long, but again, Google has the answers. Okay, moving on to the final section where I'm going to give you some quick fire tips for leveling each skill. These are definitely not min-max methods, they're just some simple things that you can aim to do in the course of a fairly natural playthrough. You can actually level many of them at the same time or in basically the same way, hence some of the grouping I've used that you'll see in the timestamps. Anyway, let's get to it, starting with the Armourer skill. The Armourer skill is improved by using repair hammers to repair your equipment. So a useful tip here is not to only repair the armour that you're using, but to also repair the armour that you loot, as that's also going to contribute to your Armourer skills and allow it to level much faster. Next up is Athletics, which is gained by using the sprint function. So yeah, just remember to sprint everywhere you go, and this one is very naturally going to level. Don't be shy to get in the water either, as swimming also increases athletics. Strictly speaking, you could just leave your character auto-running or auto-swimming against the wall. Not exactly in the spirit of a normal playthrough, but it can be very nice to have a faster run speed early on, especially if you're going to use heavy armour, for example. Moving on to Acrobatics, which can be very easily leveled by just remembering to jump constantly when you're moving around the world. You're only really going to be limited by your stamina bar, as jumping does quite rapidly deplete your stamina. If you really wanted to, you could counter this by taking some stamina regen consumables such as potions, but you probably need a little bit of spare gold if you're going to go down that route. Sneak is another really easy one to level. Just make sure you're always sneaking when you're in range of enemies or even non-aggressive NPCs, as it's going to level up naturally that way. It's important to note that skills are only going to level up whilst you're undetected, and you're not going to level if there's nobody nearby, or indeed if you're standing still. For this next one, I'm combining Blade, Blunt and Hand-to-Hand, as they all level in a similar way. The Blade and Blunt skills are unlocked by simply using your melee weapons, and Hand-to-Hand is unlocked by fighting with your bare fists. Now, aside from some sort of degenerate techniques such as using the Immortal in Deepscorn Hollow DLC, see my DLC and player housing guides if you want more on that, you really just need to use your weapons or your fists. So if you want some content that involves a lot of fighting and therefore a lot of skill leveling, I'd recommend the arena or potentially exploring dungeons. Another useful grouping of skills for leveling purposes is block, light armor, heavy armor, and restoration. The reason for this is that you can basically level them all at the same time. Just make sure you have both light and heavy armor equipped, then allow a bunch of weaker enemies to bash away at you whilst you're holding your shield up. Whenever your health starts to drop, use your restoration spells to heal. Moving on to Marksman, and I'll be honest, if you're not going to be using a bow as a primary weapon, but you still want to level Marksman, then I'd definitely suggest prioritising visiting a trainer for this particular skill every level. It's a difficult one to do without engaging in something really repetitive and boring, like finding a slow moving enemy, a zombie for example, and then just kiting and shooting them repetitively. Or you could exploit a fast spawning weaker enemy to do basically the same thing, but neither of which really feel like they form part of a natural playthrough. I'd use the trainer. Another one that can be a bit of a pain is security. There isn't really a shortcut aside from just picking every lock you come across. However, getting access to the skeleton key early on by completing Nocturnal's Daedric quest, making lockpicking easier as well as being an unbreakable lockpick in itself, mean you don't have to keep finding or buying lockpicks. You can also get the unlockable lockbox via the Dunbarrow Cove DLC, which is a player house. Again, I've got a separate video that covers that. However, it's going to cost you a few thousand gold, and it's a very repetitive and boring way to level a skill. However, on the plus side, it's much faster than waiting to stumble upon locks in your adventures. Next up is Speechcraft. And to level Speechcraft, you just simply need to remember to play the Persuasion minigame with basically every NPC you meet. This is worth doing anyway because it improves your disposition with them, and improved disposition offers some pretty major benefits such as unlocking new quests, for example. A similar NPC interaction based skill is your Mercantile skill, which is basically leveled by selling things to vendors. Now a good tip here is to sell each item individually, as it works on a per transaction basis. So for example, and as tedious as it is, you could sell arrows individually. A bit boring, and honestly I never bother doing stuff like that, but it works if you want to. Next up is Alchemy, and my tip here is pretty simple. Just go around picking up every ingredient you find and storing it so that you have a ton of stuff to mix in order to level your alchemy skill. I'm not just talking about herbs by the way, you can literally chuck flour and beef and all kinds of stuff into potions in Oblivion. So clear every table and cloth sack that you find and you'll be well on your way. Finally, moving on to the remaining magical skills: Alteration, Illusion, Mysticism, Conjuration, and Destruction. These are all leveled in the same way, basically by casting spells. For Alteration, Illusion, and Mysticism, just equip a low mana self-cast spell and spam it on yourself as you move around the world. It's really easy. For Conjuration, it's the same principle, just continually summon low-cost weapons such as the Bound Dagger. The only real limitation to this is going to be your mana. Again, if you're flush with gold, you could even use potions to top it back up and speed up the process. Destruction's a little bit more challenging, as you're actually going to need to cast the spells on an enemy, which makes it one of the slower skills to level, which makes it one of the skills that might be worth going to the trainer for every level if you're not using it that consistently. Again, you could do the same sort of thing as we talked about with Marksman, where you kite a slow enemy. You could even be a bit cheeky and turn the difficulty up a bit so they live for longer. Just remember not to get hit if you do. Oh, and probably best not to do it to a guard like I just did. And that's all of them. I hope you found the video useful. I have more Oblivion guides on my channel and I plan to produce more in the future. So if you're enjoying the content, then maybe consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.